So I've also included a quote from Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy. During the Civil War, the southern states wanted to separate. Well, this started the Civil War. They wanted to separate from the North to protect the institution of slavery. Make no mistake about it, the Civil War was about maintaining the system, the institutions of slavery. Now, there are people who will tell you, well, it was about states' rights. Exactly. The right of the state to keep and maintain slavery. So, still the same thing. But Jefferson Davis would have been their president because they rejected Abraham Lincoln, who was talking about freeing the slaves. So they had their own president. And this was Jefferson Davis. So these were two quotes. This was a quote from him. He says, white men have an equality resulting from the presence of a lower caste, blacks, which cannot exist were white men to fill the positions here occupied by the servile class, meaning slaves. So white men, regardless of how much money you have or don't have, regardless of your educational background, regardless of your ethnic group, and we're going to talk about the difference between race and ethnicity, you're equal to one another because black people make you equal because they are so inferior that it gives a rise in your status. This is what he was saying. Now, we talk a lot about the caste system in India, but we had a racial caste here in the United States, and some would argue that we still do. Blacks' jobs were chosen for them. If you were African American, you could only work as a sharecropper or an agricultural worker or domestic servant of some kind. Most of the industrial jobs were blocked to African Americans, so you couldn't work in the factories. Black women couldn't work as secretaries. They couldn't work as beauticians in white salons. They couldn't even work in retail in stores that catered to whites. They were forced into certain types of jobs. So in the caste system, your jobs are assigned based on your caste. They were not allowed to live in neighborhoods where whites were. So in the Indian caste system, they lived separate from the higher caste. They were killed with impunity. So you couldn't even protect your life. You had even no right to own a gun to protect yourself if a white mob came to lynch you. If you were to fire on that mob for your own protection or the protection of your family, you could be killed for that. So you had no rights at all, no rights whatsoever. So is that not a caste? And this is what Jefferson Davis was saying, that black people occupy a caste in this country. And this is why some of the most virulent, hateful anti-black racism can be found in whites that occupy the lower income strata. Because some of them feel that I might be poor and I might not have a window or anything to throw it out of, but I tell you this, at least I'm not black. Because even as a poor white person who is economically disenfranchised, my white skin is currency, and thus it gives me some type of privilege where I would never be treated as badly as black people are. And there are some minority groups that feel the same way, that are not black, like Asians, for instance, have been known to engage in discriminatory behavior, to have a proverbial seat, if you will, at the white table of privilege, because they've been seen historically as a model minority. So they would even disdain blacks. They would look their noses down at African Americans because they felt like by buying into white anti-black racism, they were accepted by the larger white society.